And this book is designed to walk you through the process. It's a basic book to walk you through the process. I mean, actually walk you through the process because she's got sample workbook sheets. It's just made up like a workbook, and it's available online. So my first question is, what is your purpose for writing this book? What was you trying to achieve?
Well, what happened was a little bit of a story, actually. I was asked to present a class, and so I began creating Navigating the Grant Writing Maze as a class and as a curriculum, which I still present. And it is, about a 3-hour class, depending on how it's stretched out. But what happened was I needed to have materials for handouts. So I started looking at lots of other books on what people had out there. And what I discovered was, as I was looking, they would tell you what to do, but they didn't really kind of pull it out of you. Okay. And part of my background is as a life coach. And part of being a life coach is to ask people the questions so that it kind of pulls it out of them rather than telling them all the time. Yes. So that was the intent in writing this as a workbook, was partially to have something for my class, as well as to create something that really wasn't out there, to kind of pull it out of people. And as you pointed out, everything should be in there, all the basics, so that if you actually go through the entire book and finish it, you will have completed a grant. Okay. So what I do with my class is I have them start thinking of what project they want to do, and then use that as we go through the class and as they go through the book, so that it's one thing and they have a full grant.
Wow, that's great. And then down here further in your introduction, you say, I'm often asked about the redundancy of some of the questions. If you feel you've covered a topic and that a section of the workbook is redundant, try a few things before skipping it. Okay. First, use it as a chance to write a fresh perspective. Use words or stories that you neglected to use before. So I wanted to say, why is it important to be redundant?
Well, part of the reason I am redundant in the book, first of all, is because when you're looking at grant proposals, occasionally they ask for one part, but not maybe the next one. So they may ask for a mission statement, they may not ask for that. I have it all in there, but that is partially why it's redundant. So you may be finding yourself refilling some of the same information, but it's just because I wanted you to think, oh, this is a different question, but it doesn't mean it's necessarily different information. And so it was a way of getting people to think that and understand it as well. Also, in writing a grant, you want to be a little bit redundant because when someone is reviewing, they're reading so much material that if they see it repeated, it'll stick in their mind. So you want to make sure that important stuff is repeated.
Well, when I read that, it kind of reminded me of a grant that I wrote last year, and it asked the same question a couple of times.
Right.
And I filled it out once, and I don't know, I must not have answered it to their satisfaction the next time because they graded me down for the second time that they asked it, and I guess I didn't get it. Okay. And I thought, well, you got that answer in number 2. Why are you asking it again?
Wow, I didn't know that.
But I didn't get the grant, so this really stuck out for me.
Right. Well, and they will. They'll ask sometimes the same thing, and you'll be wondering that. And what'll happen is if you read the question, there may be a slightly different tweak to it.
True.
One may be asking about how does it relate to your target population, the people you're going to be helping. The other may ask, how does the same thing relate to the money? And even though it seems like you've already written that in the beginning, to them it's slightly different. So you might really carefully read.
That's very important. I learned from that. Why should I find someone else to help me? You mentioned that whenever possible, find someone else to help you. Excuse me. And you go on to say, grant writing is a big job that works best when done with a friend, coworker, or coach.
Absolutely. What I've discovered is, if you've ever had the experience of going down the street, maybe you've gone multiple times, hundreds of times, and all of a sudden you're like, was that always there? And yeah, it was. You just never noticed it. Same thing with your grant. You may have made a spelling error. You may have made some other error. You keep reading it over and over and you don't catch it. Someone else will often catch it. Also, I often try to have someone read my grants who doesn't really know the topic. So that way, if I didn't explain something clearly, it'll be caught. Because the reviewers ideally know about your topic, but they may not. It may be someone who has no idea.
Okay, good point. And then, what does a grant coach do? And when do I know I need one?
Everyone needs one, of course.
Okay.
No. What happens is some people prefer to write their own grants. You know, they don't really want a grant writer to do all the work, but they need someone to answer these questions as something. They may be stuck in a part. You need someone to help them get through that piece. So often that's what I'll do is instead of writing the entire proposal, I will help someone just kind of when they do need the help, help them get going on it.
So what if I am writing a grant and I decide that after I'm finished with the grant, and I want you to look over the grant?
Absolutely.
And that could be something that a coach will do, would look
Right,
over the...
read it over and then say, okay, and then
Give
ask,
suggestions.
well, what did you mean here and how can we tweak this, and as well as some editing. I personally don't do a ton of if you really need editing, then you need an editor, but yeah. And I have people that do that.
Great. And then, you mentioned here that you should have some kind of contact with the potential funder and ask them questions and stuff. And don't feel embarrassed to ask the question or whatever.
Right.
So what types of questions should I ask a potential funder?
Oh, well, that's kind of a really open-ended question. And what happens is people will come up as you're writing and you'll have a question. You'll have, well, okay, it says it covers a van. Will it cover the insurance in this particular grant? Or sometimes they're very small questions, and then rather than sitting there wondering or guessing, it's best just to call. Just to call and ask. Sometimes they won't answer, but for the most part, they're extremely helpful,
Right.
and will be wonderful. It's letting you know what you need to do or how you need to write something. I mean, they won't give you great lengths of time, but enough.
Well, I've always found them very accessible as far as answering questions.
Yeah.
When I call, and very welcoming.
Absolutely.
That they really want you to ask. Because I think they really want you to get a grant from them that they want.
They want to give their money away.
Yeah,
They
they
do.
do.
They're a little overwhelmed right now because there's a lot of people submitting right now, but they want to give it away.
The need is so much there. And so the next part of my questions is, how strong are your grant writing skills? That's a portion in your book.
Right.
And where it gives a worksheet that she's outlined that covers how to go about assessing your grant writing skills. And I was really impressed by this because the skills that you're assessing is planning, organizing, goal setting, prospecting, resources, budgets, presentations, deadlines, all that. And then you say your how you rate yourself currently, your goal, and how you, when you expect to reach that goal, and how will you get there, and when you achieved it, and stuff like that. I thought this was really a great assessment tool to use.
Thank you. That goes back to my life coaching.
Really great.
Yeah.
And then, as you see, I got a lot highlighted for the mission statement. We just got through doing our mission statement
Right.
for Milwaukee Writers Circle. And according to this, I would have wish I had this knowledge first. It would have been easier.
I should have shared.
It says, what is your organization's mission? In a sentence, what do you generally want to accomplish or change? A mission statement is usually general. It reflects your focus, faith, emotion, or target population. And that's how we worked ours out. But down here, you give explicit instructions on how to, really unique instructions on how to come up with it. Write it in 1 or 2 sentences. Ours is a whole paragraph.
Ours is, the Milwaukee Writers Circle does need
Kind of
to
lengthy.
tighten theirs a little bit, but it's still good.
So one way to create a mission statement is to take index cards and write keywords or phrases, one to a card that relate for you. Brainstorm as many as you can, Then put the cards on the floor and sort through them. Which strike you as the most important? Pull those and see if they can fit with each other. Move them around on the floor. And then if a new idea comes up, write it down on a card and add it to your mix. Keep repeating that process until it sounds right for you. Then write it down. Repeat it out loud. Repeating it out loud. Does it seem or does it sound right, rather? Say it for others and get their feedback. If it works, then you have completed your mission statement.
Yep.
Yeah, really good. I like that idea of doing that. And then your mission statement, you had talked about that. Not mission statement, your vision statement.
Oh, okay.
Your vision statement is rarely asked for in a grant proposal. And you're right, I never had that. But other people in general say, what's your mission, your vision statement?
Okay.
And we don't have one yet. We have to work this out.
No, it may not be ever needed, but it's one of those things, I tried to think of what people might find and be thrown off by. So if someone did ask, you have a basic idea of how it's different from a mission.
Yes. But I know your mission statement, it always drives everything that you do.
Yeah.
When you're going into doing something new, you should go back to your mission statement and see if that's what you said you're supposed to be doing.
Right.
Right.
Because that guides, it's like a roadmap that keeps you focused on what you should be doing, what you said you were going to do.
Right.
And if you're doing something that's not in your mission statement, then you're off task. So, that's that. And then your cover letter I thought was really good. When I first started writing grants, I didn't do a cover letter. I didn't know.
Oh.
So I didn't do it. I just filled out the
Application.
proposed application
Sure.
like they said, you know. But somewhere along the line, I was instructed that a cover letter is always appropriate.
It will actually
Unspoken,
depend.
but always appropriate.
It will actually depend. And again, this is the one thing I say, redundantly, repetitively, over and over, is you really have to read the proposal and what they're looking for. Some will have their own cover letter, and that's what they want to see. Some will not have a spot for the cover letter. What happens sometimes with grants is you're allowed 10 pages, and if you put in a cover letter, you've gone over your 10 pages.
Okay.
Okay, so you want to be really careful to read first. If it doesn't say anything about not having one, or, any reason why you couldn't do it, then yeah, always throw one in, because that's an extra way of telling a little bit more about yourself and maybe being able to be a little bit more personal than they asked in their questions.
And here you outline what kind of things should go in the paragraph.